Good morning, my friends. I'm out in my backyard, and today is the last day of summer, so I thought it was appropriate to show you what a mess, as they say, it's a hot mess, my backyard is. And as much as we've been trying to keep it straightened and cleaned up for the whole summer, we've had a couple heavy storms, and, heavy in the sense that, a good inch plus rain that fell. And kind of toppled over a few things. As you can see, the one tree that's fallen over is my big moringa tree. I have about 3 of them in the yard, 4 of them, and I've already taken one down and trimmed it back because it had fallen against my fence and it was brushing against my neighbor's um, screen, and she was concerned. So they do need to be topped, so it wasn't a waste. And all of that, of course, was dried and turned into powder, which is what all of this needs to have done. But just starting out, I'll just show you I'm taking you from the other side of the yard here. This is in front of our bedroom window, and you can see we've had lots of volunteers that came up. All these impatiens were strictly volunteers. The um, agapanthus that's in the back are all just starts, and the plumeria leaves are all just getting heavy and rust, which is a fungus that seems to be a real bother here in the south because of our humidity. And you can try using neem oil and spray it every week, and we did that one year, and it just they turn yellow in the fall, and they're supposed to drop, and they didn't in Hawaii when I lived there in the 70s, but I've checked with people now, 40 years later, and they say, oh yeah, we get rust, and our leaves drop also. But anyway, this is just showing you the other big plumeria tree. But this is the moringa that I had to trim back, and you can see, I mean, it lifted. The soil was just lifted on this side. When it fell this way, the soil was lifted about 6-8 inches. But you can see that this has only barely been a week, and you can see how it's already starting to send out new growth. I mean, this thing won't miss a beat. It's a good old girl. Thank you, Miss Moringa. Moringa is such a health food, such a superfood, that you can eat it fresh in your salads and soups and what have you. Make tea out of it, make soup out of it. You can dry it. You can eat the stems. You can feed it to your animals. I personally give it to my worms. If you powder it, you can put it in capsules and take it that way. You can take it, we sprinkle it on you can sprinkle it on your cereal or salads. We sprinkle it in our yogurt, and so we get it ingested that way. So all good for you. Anyway, turning around here, you can see I've pulled out. I had sweet potatoes growing in around these. These are the grow bags that Rick gave me a couple years ago for my birthday, and I was growing determinate tomatoes in here. And afterwards, I just clipped them off, let the root die back. But I had sweet potato slips in around this, and I actually had this crepe myrtle. This was a branch, and I was using it as a trellis, and the trellis rooted, and then it leafed out and bloomed beautifully. So I kind of feel bad pulling it out of the ground. But anyway, the sweet potatoes, I harvested about 5 pounds of sweet potatoes. We just had the first one the other night. After they have to dry out for a couple weeks once you harvest them. Don't try to wash them or anything. Just kind of like brush the dirt off and let it dry for a couple weeks, and then they're good to go. But anyway, this was the moringa. This was all the branches and wood that I took from it. And I think that this winter I would like to try and build a hugelkultur. And so all of this wood is going to be used to line the base of my hugelkultur. I'm sure most of you know what that is. And if you don't, we'll explain it later. But anyway, this is the other big boy that fell. This is probably about, oh, I would say it's probably about a 10, 12 foot a tree. You can see it's gone over here. And we'll trim that back. But these are all the I grew them from seed, and they're only a little over a year old, maybe 15 months old, and several of them, grew to like this height, which is just about 6 feet. But some of them actually really did take off quite well, and I'm not going to be able to walk down that way because I haven't taken it up yet. But you can see it probably fell over, and then the wind was really heavy last night, and so it maybe either took that or that fell over by itself, the little trellis. And these are this was just a fig that my friend gave me. I think it's a brown turkey. I don't know, those of you who might know. Yeah, I think that's a brown turkey. Anyway, and it was just a little tiny thing, and there's the little side shoot from it. I have a few, I planted red clover last summer. I'm sorry, yeah, I think it was real early in this year or late in last year. And this whole thing was just beautiful in this clover with the red tops. And so I cut them back, and I think some of them dropped some seeds because I can see I'm getting some volunteers coming up here, as well as the marigolds. Marigolds just keep coming back again and again and again. But you can see I've got moringa all along here. I really need to harvest those. More of the clover. This was I can't think of the name of it. It's a zinnia, but I can't think of the name of the zinnia, but it's like a chartreuse is what it's supposed to come out as. And I didn't think they were all that great this year. I had them planted in the front. This is my peach tree, which is a Florida Prince peach. It's supposed to bear fruit, I think the 3rd year, and only needs about 100 hours of cold temperature, which I believe is below 45. So hopefully maybe we'll get that. But I think this needs to be trimmed back. I know I've been told that it only bears on second wood. So if I trim this and it gives more growth, I'm not going to get any fruit off of it. But it is obstructing, Rick is trying to mow this area, and so I really have to keep things a little tidier for him. I'm dipping down here, and here you have another moringa. Whoops, we have another little Miss Moringa that's been clipped back, and this one needs to be clipped back, as does this one. But here's another big tall one. Isn't it interesting how you can plant them next to each other, and you go from small to tall? That's probably oh my, I didn't even see that branch up there. That's probably 14 feet. It's taller than our house. Wow, that one really needs to be trimmed back, although it seems like it's pretty solid in there. Here's another one that's probably 6.5 feet. And then this one's probably an 8-footer. And then, of course, this is my 20th century Asian pear that I've had more trouble with these Asian pear trees. I've started out with 3, and 2 of them died, so I'm hanging on to this last one and hoping for the best. I need to trim those suckers. I have two figs on this side, and they are called a cold hardy Chicago fig. And I had tomatoes, the volunteer Everglades tomatoes that came up in here. And so I just let them grow in each of these pots. And then whenever they finished, then I tore them out. I'll show you this one little, I think, is that the saddest little fig you've ever seen? It was poor little thing. But lets me know that the roots are still viable, everything's still looking good. And again, more of those grow pots. Rick bought 6 of them for me. It was the gift. And oh, and then over here on this one, which actually looks like the hardier of the cold hardy, there was a fig on this one. And no more hiding. Nope, no more hiding. Anyway, it was probably, about that big. It turned a beautiful grape color, and I took it in, washed it thoroughly. It looked like there were maybe a couple ants on it that were, investigating the area. And so I rinsed it really well, washed it really well, and put it in the refrigerator and chilled it for just a little bit, and then split that in half, and we each had one, and each had a half, and it was like, wow, this is so great. So we are hoping that next year we get a lot of figs. This was my poor agapanthus that had the Everglades tomatoes just weighing down on it. I won't do that next year. This all needs to be taken apart and cleaned out, and all sorts of things done with it. The hibiscus have kind of moved along this year. I'm not seeing any real great blooms on there, although they never seem to bloom when I'm out here. If I'm sitting in the kitchen or I'm working in the kitchen, I look out and I can see these big red blooms, and I think I should go out and get some of those for my hibiscus tea. But you know how the world goes. So tea plants, cordyline, some people call them, but these are called tea plants. And I cleaned those out early this spring, and they really look great. I think cleaned back a lot of the heads. I think this coming next year they're going to get chopped back so that they're shorter, because they will resprout. If you cut them, they'll resprout their heads. The peace lilies, spathiphyllums, were just little bitty starts, and they absolutely love the fact that they are underneath the tea plants and the plumeria. So they have all this nice shade. And then come winter, whenever the sun isn't quite as hot, they will still be very, very active. But can you see those blooms? Aren't these gorgeous? Too bad they face down so much. But isn't that a pretty bloom? I could cut these, and there, I could cut those and make a beautiful bouquet out of them. I may just do that now that I'm thinking about it. And of course, just looking back this way, the mango tree that I planted from seed, I have this one, it's an Adolfo, and I planted these 2 from seed. There's one here, and then there's one further on down. I don't think I can get to it, but they made it through the winter. And so from what I understand, it takes about 6 years for them to really bear any of their own fruit. And so I think I'm going to have them in competition with both of these plumeria trees. So I'm going to have to decide on who goes. It's either going to be the plumeria gets cut way back, or the mango gets taken up and moved somewhere, which I guess I have to do that pretty soon. All of these amaryllis that I planted, like one there and one there, you can see they're all getting like little babies on the side. So most of those need to come up and I'll be allowed to rest and then start them out again in the spring. Or I can just leave them and they'll multiply in the ground and they'll come up and they'll bloom again in spring anyway. So do we do lazy, or do we do we try to multiply? I think that's probably it. I don't want to make this too long. As you can see, I've got plenty of cleanup. The not only plumeria leaves that have fallen, but isn't it amazing that the plumeria are still blooming, still giving me something pretty to take in the house. And I think maybe I'll surprise Rick. Sometimes I just leave them in his bathroom and he goes, "Oh, that's really nice. Thank you." So always good to have a surprise. And I hope everybody has a great day. I hope you all have something wonderful to look at. By the way, can you hear those birds? I want you guys to go to your app store, is that what it's called? And look up Merlin and download, however you say that, the Merlin. Jason over at Clive's Conundrum mentioned it to all of us, and I have it on my phone now, and so when I'm walking along and I hear the birds, I can go to Merlin and hit the I think sound ID, and it will tell me whether it's a Carolina wren or whether it's a bluebird or northern cardinal. Oh, it's just wonderful. It's just a wonderful thing to have on your phone. So I hope you guys all have a great day, and I hope you'll come back and see me again real soon, because I'll be here. Remember, garden what you've got. Bye-bye.